when the script came your way, what were the elements of the character of Joe that you really connected to?
Well, as soon as I read the script, I read about the first 10 pages or so. I knew I wanted to do it. I thought he was I thought you knew who Joe was the first 5 minutes that you meet him.
Mm-hmm.
That the character was pretty much explained in those 5 or 10 pages that I read. And I was always a little surprised at what was going to happen next. When I found out that his apartment was taken away from him, and then I wondered what else could happen to him, and then his car was taken away from him. He didn't have as much money as he thought he had, and everybody thought he was dead. So it was an interesting journey for me to find out what was going to happen to this guy. And I also thought he had kind of a nobility about him, although he was what he is what he is. He's a street hustler, but I think he lived by a little bit of a code, and he wanted to keep up that image at all costs.
Yeah. Have you known people like Joe May in your own life? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They're a bit of a dying breed, though, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about him. They don't. He was certainly a fish out of water, and I'm always attracted to those kinds of characters. I don't know why. I just like that idea of those kinds of persons. I thought he had in a way, his sense of humor was that he was so serious about himself. Mm-hmm. And when people are like that, I think they're funny without meaning to be funny.
Well, what interested me to hear from your actor's perspective is, what do you think his dream was, and why don't you think, what was it in him that kept him from achieving it?
Well, I think his dream was what all con men are. They always want to make that next score, and they always think they can do better, and they always think they're a little sharper than everyone else when they're really not. Mm. And that's what drives them. That's why they get up in the morning. If they made $50 yesterday or $75 yesterday, they think they're going to make $100 today.
Yeah.
But his time is come and gone. People don't do that anymore. They can't. People are a little sharper than what they used to be. But Joe hasn't realized that his time has come. And his final redemption is what he does at the end of the movie. I don't want to give anything away, but what he does at the end of the movie, he feels justifies everything that he's done up to that point.
I think that's what impressed me most about the movie, because it feels so truthful that he does have a redemption at the end, and that could have easily been played for sentimentality, I think. And the movie's not sentimental. It's honest about who Joe May is. Was that a difficult balance to get right, or was that just in the script, that feeling?
Well, it was a little bit of both. Joe Maggio, who wrote and directed the movie, told me in the beginning, he said, it's very easy for you to get sentimental about this, to get sentimental about the girl and to get sentimental about the little girl, the daughter. He says, I don't ever want Joe to be sentimental. Mm. No matter what he is, he's still Joe May. And he's got to keep that image up. That's why in a lot of the scenes, there's one scene where Jamie Allman's character asks him to hug her. And I can't do that right now. Because he couldn't do that. He's still Joe May. And that was it was hard to do, because your first reaction is you want to be warm and cuddly. But Joe Maggio didn't want him that way. He wanted him to be Joe May up until Joe May makes that final turn and gets his redemption at the end.
And I love that about it because, I mean, the thinking, I guess, when you're making it or creating that character is, man, is the audience going to respond to Joe May? Are they going to like him? But I think we do because we sense that he's authentic. You know, he's the real deal. Yeah.
And there's another thing about him. There's a certain nobility about him that he doesn't want to become romantically or sexually involved with Jamie's character because the little girl is there.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't want to cross those lines either.
This was originally set in New York,
right?
And you suggested a switch to Chicago, which it was switched. What was it about Chicago that spoke to the truthfulness of this story, and what does it bring out in Chicago?
Well, several things. Number one, I hadn't worked in, I live in Chicago. I was born and raised there, and I still live there, and I hadn't worked there for a while, so I was itching to work in Chicago. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that we got a pretty good tax break from the state of Illinois. And the other thing is that we always knew that the weather would be another character in the movie. And while it's cold in New York in the wintertime, there's no place that's colder than Chicago in December and January. Mm. So we wanted the weather to be another character. If this movie takes place in May or June, it's a different kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think we lose some intensity. And we got what we wished for. It was really cold, and it rained, and it snowed. And every time, it seemed every time we needed snow, it snowed. And when we needed rain and windy weather, it worked for us. It was as if it was planned.
You've done so many great movies and given so many great performances. But when you're doing it, like when you're playing a Joe May and the process of doing it, can you feel when it's working, or is there always an uncertainty?
Well, I think there's always an uncertainty because you always want it to be, to be 100%, and I don't know if you always get that. But there are some scenes that you do, and you say, you know what, I felt pretty good about that. But I'm a really bad critic of myself. I can't do that. I can't. I don't know what's good or bad.
Well, you're very, very good. So let me tell you. So are you comfortable watching dailies or watching yourself? Or?
No, I'm not, and I never have been, and I probably never will be.
Mm. Well, thinking about the directors you've worked with, I mean, the name that obviously pops up more than any other is Michael Mann,
mm-hmm.
and he strikes me as a very meticulous, detail-oriented filmmaker. Is that what he is for the actor?
Oh, yeah, he is, but not to the point where he's closed-minded about things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people make that mistake, not only about Michael, but about other people. That he's meticulous. And with Michael, when you go to work for Michael, no one knows the material more than Michael. If he picks a subject to work on, he will research that to the nth degree. And you come in and he shares that all with you.
Mm.
If you have something to say, or you have an opinion, or you want to try something, he's very open to stuff like that. And you can do that. And you can make a case with him. I don't know an example, but if you go in and say, I heard this, or I think this, or I think that, and you can make that case with him, and you can try it. He'll let you do that. He's not closed-minded at all.
Mm-hmm. But you have to know your stuff, obviously.
You have to know your stuff, yeah. But I think that's with anybody.
Yeah.
I think any director. Directors are supposed to know, the subject more than, I guess, than anybody. But with Michael, he's open to stuff like that.
Well, seeing the previews for Luck, which is your new project with him, an
mm-hmm.
HBO series with Hoffman and Nolte, and
yeah,
that's quite a pedigreed project. What can you tell me about that one?
Well, again, I met with Michael and David Milch, and they asked me if I would be interested. I read the script. I liked the script right away. And then they told me, well, Dustin Hoffman is going to do the part. And I met him, and we got along right away. Nick and I don't have too much to do together, but of course we see each other at the readings and talk all the time. He's a wonderful guy, and tells wonderful stories. He's just a lot of fun to be around. Nice guy, very nice guy.
Yeah.
But we also have Kevin Dunn and Joan Allen and Jason Gedrick and Michael Gambone. There's all these wonderful people that have come around.
I cannot wait for that. And that's early next year. I think that's
in January, I think.
Wow. Well, you've worked with so many great people. I mean, looking back through your resume and from Saving Private Ryan and Get Shorty and so many great directors, is there a lesson you've learned from any of your collaborators that has proven most valuable to you in your own work?
Well, Michael told me at one point, this is years ago when we were doing Crime Story, Michael told me there's going to come a point during this process where no one will know this character better than you. Mm-hmm. He said it's just going to happen. It happens to everybody. You get up in the morning and you say, I really found what this character is and what he does. And he said, don't ever let anybody make you do something that you don't think the character would do. Mm-hmm. So be prepared to fight for that. And I asked him, I said, well, what if it's you that asked me to do something that I wouldn't do? He says, I might be the exception.
Wow.
But he told me that, and that always kind of stuck with me, that at a certain point, you may know more about the character than anyone else.
Yeah. I just had one more question for you, and it's about working in independent film, because you've worked in both, the bigger studio movies and independent film where the pace is a lot faster. Does that put different demands on you as an actor when you're working at that fast pace, and is it helpful in any way to you?
Well, I kind of like it because, you have a set time. You have 3 weeks or a month to do this, and there's no, the luxuries aren't there. So you have to know what you're doing. You have to know the script. You have to be prepared to move pretty quickly. And I kind of like that. I like that pace. It's always wonderful to do a big studio movie because you get all the perks and everything with it. But I kind of like independent filmmaking. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's what films were like to begin with.
Yeah.
You read all these stories about the early film companies, and they were always stealing shots here and moving and doing things that they weren't supposed to do because they didn't want to get caught. It's like guerrilla filmmaking, and I think that's more true to what films were like originally when they first started making them.